Sleeping Beauty. A long time ago, there lived a king and a queen who were very sad because they had no children. One day, as the queen sat by a pond in the castle gardens, thinking of her wishes, a frog hopped onto a lily pad in front of her and said, "Your wish will be granted. Before a year has passed, you shall have a daughter." Everything happened as the frog had said. A little girl was born, and the king was so happy that he ordered a great celebration feast to be held. All their friends and relatives and kings and queens from other kingdoms were invited, together with 12 fairies who would bring special gifts to the princess. Now, it happened that there were 13 such fairies living in this domain, and everyone knows that the 13 is an unlucky number. So one of these was not invited to the feast, and she was not a happy fairy. The day for the feast arrived, and all the guests were gathered in the great hall of the king's castle. Every guest brought a gift, and the 12 fairies lined up to bestow their special gifts on the baby. "I give her virtue," said one. "I give her beauty," said another. Yet another give her riches, another health, and so on, until she had all the gifts that any mother or father could wish their child to own. 11 fairies gave their gifts, and as the 12th stepped forward, the door flew open, and emerged the 13th, who was determined to have her revenge. "On her 15th birthday, the princess shall prick her finger on a needle and die," she exclaimed loudly, and turned her back on the whole company and left. Then the 12th fairy, who had not yet give her gift, stepped forward. She said that she could not undo the wicked fairy's curse, but she could soften it. "The king's daughter will not die, but will sleep for 100 years." But the king and queen hoped to save their daughter from this fate, and ordered that all the needles in the kingdom should be destroyed. The princess grew to be beautiful, wise, friendly, and well behaved. Everyone who knew her loved her. Now it happened that on the morning of the day of her 15th birthday, the king and queen were not at home. So the princess was alone in the castle. She wandered around from room to room, along the corridors, and up and down the splendid staircases until she came upon an old tower. She climbed the narrow, winding stairs until she reached a door, in the lock of which was a rusty key. The princess turned the key. The door sprang open, and there in the room she saw an old woman with a spinning wheel. "Good morning, my good lady," said the princess. "What are you doing here?" "I am spinning," she replied. "Here, you can try it." No sooner had she taken hold of the spindle, the princess pricked her finger and fell back onto the bed in a deep sleep. Everyone in the castle fell asleep. The king and queen, who had just returned home, their courtiers and servants, the horses in the stable, the doves on the roof, the flies on the walls, and even the fire in the hearth all appeared to die in the same moment. A thick bramble hedge quickly grew around the castle until not even the flag on the high tower could be seen. The story was told throughout many lands of a beautiful princess asleep in a lost castle where every living creature lay motionless. Many princes came and tried to cut their way through the thorns to reach her, but they were unsuccessful. After many years had passed, another king's son came by and heard the story of the sleeping princess. He was not to be daunted by the failure of those who had gone before him. It happened that 100 years had very nearly passed since the great sleep had fallen on the castle. As this young prince approached the thick bramble hedge, the thorns turned into fine flowers and parted to let him through. In the courtyard, he saw the horses and dogs lying fast asleep. He stepped over the bodies of the courtiers in the great hall and saw the king and queen asleep on their thrones. The prince looked in all the rooms in the castle, and at last he came to the tower and opened the door of the little chamber where the princess slept. She looked so beautiful that the prince could not help but gaze upon her, and he bent down and kissed her. Just as he did so, she opened her eyes and smiled at him. Then the king and queen awoke, and the whole court, the servants, the horses, the dogs, and the flies on the wall, the fire in the hearth began to burn brightly. The whole castle was once more alive with the sound of happy voices, as if nothing had happened, for the 100 years' sleep had made no difference to anyone. Very soon, the wedding of the prince and his sleeping beauty was celebrated with great splendor, and they lived together, happy and contented to the end of their lives. Thank you for listening, boys and girls.